Hello and a warm welcome. You're watching India Tonight with me, Jude Sanant, even as my colleague Sumita Karir joins us from our Delhi studios. Our top story first, as per a parliamentary committee report, 16.54 crore out of roughly 30 crore vehicles on the road are in fact uninsured. This comes to a staggering 56%, and this report was cited by the Supreme Court to direct the government to explore a possible no insurance, no fuel policy. Sumita, what do you think of that? No fuel at all if you don't have insurance on your vehicle?
Well, Jude, whether that's going to lead to some sort of a change within the consumer's mindset, that remains to be seen. But the Supreme Court bench has directed the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways and the IRDAI to formulate a pilot project exploring a system wherein fuel is supplied to a vehicle only if it has a valid insurance. In fact, can this be a solution to ensure more uninsured vehicles on the road? To discuss the several aspects of this proposed policy, I'm now joined by Animesh Das. He's the MD and CEO of acko General Insurance. Thank you very much, Mr. Das, for taking the time out and speaking to us here on ET Now. What do you really make of the observations of the Honorable Court? And secondly, why do nearly 56% of vehicles reportedly remain uninsured despite insurance being mandatory?
Hi, thanks, Sami, for having me over here. I think I'll divide the order into two parts. One is obviously the tech-driven enforcement, where the traffic cameras or the e-challans have to be integrated with the traffic camera and the database which IAB or Vahan or Ministry of Road Transport manages. So that's one part. And then there's a pilot which is proposed around fuel pumps or like you covered, the petrol pumps, ensuring that the vehicle has insurance before they give fuel or petrol to the vehicles. So I think this is one component of the order. The second component is where they have also where the Honorable Supreme Court has asked to increase the tenure of the mandated policy when a brand new vehicle is purchased for car and two-wheeler. So currently the mandate is for 3 years, where anyone who is buying a car, they have to buy a 3-year mandatory TP policy, and 5 years for two-wheelers, which has been increased to 6 years. So the 3-year is increased to 4, and the 5-year two-wheeler policies are increased to 6 years. So these are the orders. The current situation, as we were discussing, the current situation is where almost half of the vehicles are uninsured. The problem is majorly with two-wheelers, so that's the critical part to understand. A major component of uninsured vehicles are around in two-wheelers and to good extent in commercial vehicle as well. So that's the right way of checking the statistics. I think there are multiple reasons why this is uninsured vehicles are out there. One is the rural market itself is one challenge. While the urban population has decent compliance check, the rural market has one of the challenges. The older vehicle, like I mentioned, is one of the bigger challenges. I think the channel incentive also to kind of check with the user for older vehicle insurance also goes down as the ticket size goes down. I think that these are the kind of challenges because of which the vehicle base is majorly uninsured.
Right. So, Animesh, let's assume that this implementation idea proposed by the court of no insurance, no fuel, if that does go about getting implemented successfully, and I understand that it's a big if, how much of this problem is likely to be overcome, and how will insurance penetration levels then increase from here on? If you could give us a guesstimate in terms of how effective this could well be, once this implementation is done on the ground.
So one part where, let's say, a fuel pump related policy is piloted, and let's see, there are multiple parties who have to come together. Potentially the Petroleum Ministry, the Ministry of Road Transport, IADA, all of these parties have to come together to make it work. So we need to see how will this get implemented. It'll have its own practical logistics challenge. If this works out in the way it is intended, I think it can be very impactful. It can lead to, and this is one of the right ways to kind of get it implemented, because the challenge of uninsured vehicle is very, very high in terms of road victims, right? Because if 20% plus of the vehicle or the accidents which occur in the road is uninsured, so those victims are not getting any benefits. So that's very, very challenging, and these can be very, very high impact on those victims. So numerically, it's always a guess that how will it play out, but I think it can actually solve the uninsured vehicle problem in India. So this part of if the order, I think we are heavily appreciating that if this gives a push to the right authorities to come together, work together and solve one of the major challenges which the Indian roads face today.
Right. Animesh, it's a major challenge that you rightly stated. And of course, we should do all that we can perhaps to sort of increase insurance uptake and, of course, the numbers in the sector. But don't you think it's only going to inconvenience consumers? Because what the government needs to address at this point in time is A, enforcement, and secondly, affordability, particularly for low-income families.
Yeah, so I think that's work in progress, and I think you're taking the right direction. That end of the day, uh, insurance product affordability, there are multiple challenges, and I'll tell you the hidden part of this order, which actually is the biggest challenge. So mandating, like I mentioned, mandating 4-year insurance at the time of brand new car purchase or 6-year at the time of brand new two-wheeler purchase is only going to increase the ticket size. It also is going to skew the insurance attachment at the time of brand new car purchase, where most of, or two-wheeler purchase, where let's say dealerships actually attach insurance out there, and these ticket size are higher. There's a lot of commission baked in that. So that is going to further increase or strengthen the OEM to kind of create this, if I can use the word monopoly, right, out here, where the ticket size is all again going to go up. They'll have more leverage to charge the commission. So I think those structural things have to be solved. We have been in discussion, which we know, like there is commission reforms which are coming in, which is supposed to push for more affordable products, hopefully. So we'll see how will that play out. So I think those are structural direction to take. If none of those structural things will work out, obviously these kind of enforcements are done. But I think the underlying problem statement may remain as it is, unless the structural problem of how the product is built, how the claims are made easy for the consumers. At the same time, the price point of the product has to come down, because if the price point is high, most of the consumers don't see value in the product and they don't buy.
Lots to look forward to then, but the fact remains, like you said, structural changes could well be the need of the hour in order to smoothen out the claims process and make insurance really a seamless activity for multiple motorists and thereby increase the penetration. On that note, thank you so much for joining us on India Tonight to break down some of these insights in the aftermath of that court order. Great speaking with you. To take this conversation forward and dissect and discuss what exactly it means for motorists, insurance companies, and many other stakeholders insofar as road safety, automobiles, and insurance is concerned, I'm now joined by a panel of guests. Vikesh Gulati, former president of the Federation of Automobile Dealers Associations, joins us, as does Ramashankar Pandey, road safety expert. Mr. Ramashankar Pandey, if I could start with you. At the outset, the court's order of no fuel, no insurance in an attempt to increase penetration and insurance uptake does seem like a great idea, at least if not for anything at all, to actually improve coverage, reduce liabilities on individuals, and just improve overall road safety, you'd reckon, at the get-go, Mr. Ramashankar Pandey.
Thank you so much, Jude. If you look at, in fact, road safety ecosystem already has a lot of regulations and these rules, right? This is clear indication that on a large level, enforcement has failed. And since enforcement has failed, it is not a new law, it is not a new rule. You need to have a third-party insurance. But now what we see is a very interesting approach that Honorable Supreme Court has taken to debate it further. In fact, for all of us, this is a point of concern. Why so many people are not taking vehicle insurance? And I think this is where the root cause is. If you look at all other road rules as well, India's biggest problem is enforcement. We have grossly failed in enforcing our rules on the road. Now, while we enforce, generally it is a normal trend in government, and also this is what we see in Supreme Court, that you actually take decisions which are more enforceable. So it's a very good touch point. Everybody comes to petrol pump, and if you deny petrols to them, there is a chance that this will go up. I think if this really works out with a lot of big integration, personally, if you ask me, it's going to have a very difficult, very challenging implementation, because as such enforcement is failing. Now we want the petrol pump owners and their staff to do the role of enforcers. While you do that, the biggest problem is the moment you already know more than 20%, this is also a kind of understanding thumb rule. More than 20% violation, difficult to enforce. Now, having said that, I think if this works out to be a good success, we should also look at what Smita just told regarding the affordability. I think affordability is also a big question. I agree that this might bring us a interesting logic that they will go for insurance. In fact, hardly it costs you 500, 600,000 rupees for a two-wheeler. And most of the two-wheelers are insured in this percentage. One way will be that can we incentivize them? And this is where I think we can actually tie two things: road safety and this, giving claims to others, is by making an incentive to people who can actually drive
Absolutely, Mr.
better.
Pandey.
Because India is probably the only country where third-party insurance are regulated heavily, and it is in some average of all the accidents cost with the country pays. Rather than a sum average, can we make it a
Right.
user-based insurance where if you drive better, you can get a complete waive off? If you don't drive better, you can actually get a different insurance premium by
Absolutely.
the next time you go. Maybe we can think of those innovative solutions rather than again telling what is not enforceable to enforce further.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Mr. Pandey. Those points sum up the crux of why are we sort of debating this very topic today. But let me also go across to Mr. Vinkesh Gulati. Mr. Vinkesh Gulati, of course, the debate right now is about why penalize motorists at fuel stations instead of strengthening enforcement through registration renewals, or of course bringing the cost of motor insurance down. Why can't the government look at that? And if you could also help us understand what is it that other countries across the globe have sort of done with respect to increasing the penetration of insurance, particularly on roads?
So thanks. It's a very good question, but I feel half has been also already answered by Ramashankarji. See, very frankly, if I talk about abroad, the insurance cost is always related to how you drive. It's even related to the color of vehicle you have, your age, how is your driving sense, have you done any accident in your lifetime or how many years, and that comes up with the cost what your vehicle insurance coverage is. So obviously, all the people are very cautious about how they drive and how they maintain their vehicle and avoid accidents so that they get benefit in the insurance cover. Additionally, one more thing, the enforcement can't be done by private people. It's very difficult to enforce it. If you see in Delhi what happened, when Delhi government said if you are more than 10 years in diesel and 15 in petrol, you will not be able to get petrol in the city. But actually, what happened? The vehicles were still plying because they could get petrol from some pumps which were not supporting or some pumps which are out of Delhi. So enforcement given to private people, such enforcement, it is very difficult to manage. I feel the government has a bigger duty if they really want to put in some of these clauses. The enforcement has to be with them. There are a lot of CCTV cameras at all the road sections. There are a lot of traffic police and normal police which is moving around. They don't need to stop also. The cameras can easily check the HSRP plate and find out if the person is driving without insurance or not. And maybe and so many traffic peoples are normally trying to enforce the red light to create a fine or increase the fine budget of the government. But if they do this also, this will help. And like you said, you very well said, affordability is becoming a very big issue today. After the BS4, BS6 price hike, the vehicles have become very costly. A two-wheeler, which was maybe 10 years back, was costing 50, 60,000. It starts at 80 to 90,000 today. And abroad, there are not so many two-wheelers in the world. Or they have those small two-wheeler electric vehicles which are run at a very low cost. India is a very different story when I talk about two-wheelers. And like the person was saying, it's majorly two-wheelers which are not insured. And another reason is they are normally not on the highways or the major roads. It's a very limited spare where they move in. And that is why the issues are different. But I feel enforcing through a petrol pump is not a good idea at any case. I feel IRDA should come forward, check what is the third party premium, and reduce that third party if they want to really it. They are charging a third party premium which a customer can pay every year. You are taking 2 years before. Like today, we do sell 3 years third party in cars and 5 in
Absolutely.
two-wheelers. They should at least discount it. If you are charging an amount which is normally you say you put in the money and 5 years it will double. So at least reduce the cost for third party if you really wants to do it. Why do you want insurance company
Right.
to earn if you want to penalize the customer for the accident, which may be not his fault? It could be the road infrastructure
Absolutely.
fault. It could be a person who is driving wrongly or the pedestrian who is moving wrongly. You haven't given a proper
No, Mr.
pedestrian
Gulati,
path
I
and
think
all
that
that.
these are some very valid points and some very
Yeah.
sensible suggestions as well, especially on the compliance and, in terms of the structural changes that are required to ensure this compliance. But let me get Mr. Ramashankar Pandey back in on the discussion itself. So the fact is, there already exists a framework of infrastructure like AI-enabled CCTV cameras. We read the news every day about automatic challans being generated, being sent to motorists for traffic violations. Of course, if they end up paying or not is a whole other story, that is a fact. But surely the existing infrastructure can be used to monitor compliance with regard to insurance as well, and thereby ensure coverage. Should that not be a place where policymakers and courts should possibly be looking, Mr. Pandey?
In fact, if you look at this, is irony of this country that what is the role of government, or I think it's about accountability. I believe if you look at overall road safety, millions of us use roads every day, and more than 502 families does not get back their people home day after day, every day. Is it not an urgent topic? There's almost like a national security threat. If you look at every 3 minutes, one Indians we are losing. Now, having understood this as a grave problem, what are we doing today? Today, road safety has actually, there's a Supreme Court committee on road safety, and they are trying to integrate all ministerial departments, all everybody together. It's an integration problem. It's an enforcement problem. Somebody from the top must take care of this. You also have to ask why people are not insuring. When they're not insuring third party, they're also not insuring their own self. So whenever you buy a comprehensive insurance, you have to understand if 56% people does not have the third party, they also don't have an insurance for themselves. Why are they not taking care of their own life and their own vehicle? One of the major reasons is in our country, people feel road crashes are an act of God. It is not an act of science because we have not really brought systems and policies which let them understand that there's a role to be played in terms of your driving behavior and everything. What Vinkesh you were telling. So somewhere we are very superstitious about accidents. We think it is an act of God. काली बिल्ली चली जाएगी में हम रुक जाएंगे, but we don't really take care of those rules. Somewhere this needs to be broken, and we need to spend money. How much money we spend on road safety? Look at even on the train or the railway safety, how much we spend. We don't spend anything, right? And the cost of the life is so much. I think the time has come. It has to be a public investment through government route, not through the private investment route. So we want private people to spend more on this. I don't think this is an answer. You cannot fund people dying on road, and so many people dying on road. The moment you have the road crash coming down, the deaths coming down, your premium will come down. This is simple mathematics. So rather than working on that, which is a good investment by the government, let's spend more on the enforcement. Let's integrate the departments, create another ministry for these road safety. I think all those big policy decisions need to be taken. ये you call handy plus type का कुछ भी लगा, ये नहीं चलेगा quick fix है. Because we think OEM can enforce, OEM के ऊपर डाल दो. Because we think petrol pump can enforce, उसके ऊपर डाल दो. How much they will do? I think the time has come to call out that it's a national security threat. It needs a comprehensive dialogue. If you look at road safety bill, the first road safety bill had many of these provisions. We had national safety patrol. Even if you have enough mechanism in the government to penalize them, even after you challan, you can't take the money from them. Today, how many challans are unpaid? So this needs a very different prioritization in our government, in our country.
Absolutely, Mr. Pandey. Let me ask you just one final question before we wrap up this chat. Now, you speak about road safety and how that should be the priority of the government, and which is what is going to bring down accidents that we see in the country. But, on this proposal, could this proposal face constitutional challenges on the grounds of proportionality and, of course, access to essential services for the common people, and particularly those, like I stated earlier, low-income families, those people who come from low-income families?
Very interesting angle you have brought. I guess this is where our policies are not very inclusive. It's not antodaya. What happens to the last man standing in the queue? Are we thinking about them? I think these quick fixes always does not act comprehensively. So you are very right. But at the same time, I think the intent and the intention is correct, Smita, because if person dies in road crash with a victim who is like a single earner of the family, what happens to them? This is where it's a complex topic. It is not as simple as just affordability problem. You know how many families after the accident deaths, their standard of living, their day-to-day survival is a question mark. And who dies on road? Who's actually poor pedestrian? You see how much the jump in the death of पैदल यात्रियों के लिए those who walk, almost more than double it has become. Similarly, you see who is dying is two-wheeler guys. Now all of them are single earner for the family, and when they die, there's nothing left for the family, and that is where we need to protect them. Now, how do we protect them? Today, government's money is protecting them. Maybe we want to recover this from the public or from the private people. I don't think it's a good idea, but at the same time, there's a rule that insurance to be done. Can we make this premium cheaper? Can we make accidents lower? Can we work on user-based insurance?
Absolutely.
These are very productive ideas. And if
You know,
you
Mr.
only
Pandey,
go for
I
quick
think-
fixes, I think it's difficult.
Absolutely. No, I think there's one consensus that all of us can arrive at, and that a quick fix is certainly not the solution, and that private players may not be the most ideal candidate to actually go about enforcement itself. The fact is that India's road safety needs improvement, and insurance coverage is a very big part of making that happen. But on that note, Mr. Pandey, Mr. Gulati, thank you so much for joining us on the show today and sharing your insights with us. Great speaking with you right here on the Bulletin. Well, moving on, the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers has said that fuel quality testing under the prevailing regulatory framework is a rigorous and comprehensive process. In fact, Sumita has a lot more details from where that statement came from and the context behind it. Sumita, take it away.
Absolutely, Jude. So this statement from SIAM, the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers, it came late last night, wherein SIAM has clarified its stance on reports that have been talking about fuel contamination claims. In fact, we did see the Oil Ministry rebut those claims, and the Oil Ministry came up with a clarification that there are no cases. In fact, there are barely a few cases as far as fuel contamination, particularly with respect to E20 as far as that is concerned. But SIAM has stated that these reports have quoted selective excerpts, and these are fully out of context. In fact, fuel quality, as SIAM says, fuel quality testing under the current framework is quite comprehensive, and it is carried out by OMCs. In fact, it also mentions the chloride sulfur figures that are being reported. It says that they require further authentication, and MOP and GEO, the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, has prescribed a 3 ppm chloride sulfur guideline for ethanol blended into petrol, and that is something that is being followed. In fact, SIAM says that OMCs say that checks have been instituted, and of course, with this statement, this long one-page statement that SIAM has come out with, it reiterates its stance or reiterates its support for the government's E20 program, and it does say that there is no cause for public concern as these issues have been routinely addressed. Now, this is something that the Oil Ministry also stated. They said that the fuel quality in the country is being monitored on a regular basis by OMCs, and the reports that have been talking about fuel quality contamination or fuel contamination that's affecting the quality of the fuel, well, those are few and far in between. But Jude, there's lots that's happening as far as the aviation sector is concerned. The sector is back in focus because Air India has roped in former CEO of Ethiopian Airlines.
Absolutely, Sumita. From automobiles to aviation next, like you were mentioning, the Air India has appointed Tewolde Gebremariem as its new Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director, thereby marking a major leadership transition as the Tata Group continues the airline's transformation. Now, Tewolde is the former CEO of Ethiopian Airlines and is widely credited with turning the African carrier into one of the world's fastest growing and most profitable airlines. During his tenure, he succeeds Campbell Wilson, who has led Air India since its acquisition by the Tata Group and will now move into a new role within the Tata ecosystem. My colleague Kuldeep brings us more on this story.
Well, Air India's board has appointed Tewolde Gebremariem as the new Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of the airlines. He will replace Campbell Wilson and the date he assumes charge and the transition schedule will be announced later. The Air India board selected Tewolde Gebremariam unanimously after a global search, and in fact he previously served as CEO of Ethiopian Airlines. Important to note here is that as per reports, Pakistan International Airlines had also shortlisted Gebremariam for CEO role in July. However, as CEO of Ethiopian Airlines Group, he transformed a regional airline into Africa's largest and most profitable airline group. Under his leadership, Ethiopian Airlines revenue increased by over fourfold and the fleet size increased by nearly threefold. He has long experience in airline turnaround, operational excellence, safety, developing global hubs, and building MRO and aviation training infrastructure. As per a statement issued by Air India, the company said that since Air India is now moving out of an initial turnaround phase and entering a period of rapid expansion and profitable growth, in which Tewolde's experience will play a crucial role. N. Chandrasekaran, the chairman of Tata Sons and Air India, said that Tewolde's experience will play an important role in making Air India a world-class global airline. Tewolde, in a statement, said that leading Air India is an honor for him, and his goal will be to ensure world-class service, improved operations, Indian hospitality, and long-term growth as the CEO of Air India.
All right, thank you very much, Kuldeep. So, new captain at the helm of affairs at the airline. We'll see how that really plays out. But, Jude, it's now time for us to slip into a short commercial break. And we do have coming up next the big story in tech while Meta is facing fresh heat from government over child sexual abuse material, deepfake content, and alleged lapses in platform governance. In fact, sources say that Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg conveyed an apology. Meanwhile, Meta's Chief Global Affairs Officer Joel Kaplan also expresses regret over temporary restriction of the Prime Minister's post during student protests. All of that and more is coming up. We'll, of course, be joined in by special guests who will help us decode that story and, of course, the policy that needs to be tweaked in the country with respect to the changing role of big techs. That's coming up right after this very short break. We suggest you stay tuned to ET Now. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching India Tonight with me, Sumita Karir, and my colleague Jude Sanith. And of course, taking a look at one of the top stories that we're tracking here on the show. This one is coming in from tech. Well, after Meta officials met Meta's global team, government sources indicate that Meta chairman and CEO Mark Zuckerberg has in fact conveyed apologies over CSAM or child sexual content material, in fact deepfake content as well, and platform related errors. This is what government sources are indicating. In fact, the government has also reiterated that safe harbor protection under IT Act will not be liable if there are errors found as far as this particular aspect is concerned. However, Joel Kaplan, the company's chief global affairs officer, has said it. In fact, he's also issued a statement, and I quote, "I apologize to the minister on behalf of Meta for the error restricting Prime Minister Narendra Modi's post." So, of course, that statement that's coming in from Meta, and this is something that government sources have indicated about the apologies that have been issued from Meta's side to the government of India. Jude, so, this is a rather interesting case, and perhaps, it is an aberration of sorts as well, because I don't remember the last time that India summoned a global executive of a big tech company in a matter that's related to content moderation and, of course, the temporary takedown of the Prime Minister's video.
Absolutely, Sumita, but the fact remains that at least in the last decade or so, content moderation and takedown orders have pretty much been the order of the day insofar as the center and multiple social media platforms and intermediaries are concerned. And of course, the recent fracas between Meta and the Indian government is in many ways a continuation of that, but it's been quite the episode that we're seeing now. So we also have a panel of guests to help take this conversation forward, dissect it and see what it means for both the government and Meta itself. We're being joined by Jibu Elias, fellow at the Mozilla Foundation and author of The New Divide. We're also being joined by Dr. Utpal Chakraborty. He's, of course, chief scientist at the Ghana AI Research Lab. We're also being joined by Kazim Rizvi, founder at The Dialogue. Let me start with you, Jibu. What do you make of the ongoing situation between Meta and the Indian government? There are two issues at play here. There's, of course, child sexual abuse material that the government has had Meta in the crosshairs for. But the government and Meta have also had an equal degree of acrimony with regard to the episode of the temporary takedown of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's video in the light of the CJP protests at Jantar Mantar. It's not been a great time to be either Meta or the Indian government, given the acrimony that we're seeing in this relationship. Jibu.
See, first of all, Mark Zuckerberg's apology is the least important part here because since founding Meta, he has made like 15 to 20 apologies. Whether it's for privacy failures or for Cambridge Analytica or misinformation, now for deepfakes. Now, coming to CSAM, CSAM is illegal. And there's essentially zero policy debate on it, right? There shouldn't be a debate on it. We know that it's a no. It's a big no. Whatever the incentives are, whatever the rewards are, it's a place we don't want to go. That there's a strong policy in place, and there is no need of even debate on CSAM content, right? So it must be detected, removed, and reported. It's so shocking that this kind of content, as per the acknowledgement by Meta, that they got amplified, and that's really shocking. Now, coming to the Prime Minister situation, I am really shocked because the Prime Minister of India is a sovereign head of a democratic country, and I have no idea how or who decides to take down a content, a speech posted by the Honorable Prime Minister of India or any country in the world. So this all lead to the question that have we been giving them an easy pass over these years? There have been so many instances previously also, the Meta, losing its site, right? Whether it's Myanmar, whether it's Sri Lanka, in many countries where, or even in India with misinformation and causing a lot of, intra-communal and other violences, promoting violences as well. Because ultimately their goal is to create more engagement. They amplify content that's more outrageous, more ragey, that gets more click so that they can sell more ad. That's the primary business model of Meta. I believe India, as their largest market, should hold leverage here, and we shouldn't be tough towards them. This is not the first time they have dropped the ball. This won't be the last time they will be doing something like this. And in every way, we have the advantage here, and we should be, as a sovereign country, we should be taking our stand.
Absolutely, Jibu, that's a point well made, especially when you talk about the fact that companies that are operating in India, global companies operating in India, they have to follow the law of the land, and this is something that the government of India also stated in the case pertaining to X when they went to court on certain orders which were related to content takedowns, or so that point has been made earlier as well. But Kazim, if I were to come to you, particularly with respect to the child sexual abuse material, we do know that MeitY had summoned Meta officials a couple of days back, and of course Meta presented their side of the story, and they said that we do have safeguards in place to make sure that this material doesn't come up. However, there are bad actors. Why is it that companies have not been really able to tackle the harms that the internet can cause, particularly with respect to children? I mean, when I was speaking to a government source, the source was telling me that he was aghast, and that's what he asked. He asked Meta representatives as to how did that kind of content appear in Instagram ads in the first place. So why have companies not really been able to curb such kind of content from appearing in the first place?
Look, there is no excuse for CSAM on the internet, right? Platforms definitely have to do more. It's clear that social media platforms have to step up when it comes to enforcement and when it comes to takedown of CSAM content. Having said that, social media is also consisting of a large volume of data. And I think it's imperative that platforms invest more when it comes to takedown and moderation processes to be able to meet that volume of data, right? we have the right laws, we have the IT Act, we have the POSCO Act to deal with it. But do we have the right capacity and enforcement mechanisms? I'm not sure about that. And that's why this problem keeps coming up. And it will keep coming up again and again because we also live in an imperfect world. We live in a world where there are bad actors who will find different ways um, to propagate harmful and problematic content. But at the same time, I think it's imperative that platforms demonstrate that, yes, they are doing the right thing. They are putting the right processes. They are putting the right measures in place. They have the systemic processes in place to deal with the barrage of CSAM content, which these platforms, are sort of, hosting. So I think it's clear. I think from the recent developments that platforms, social media platforms at large, have to really evolve the way they go about takedown, the way they go about moderation, the way they go about investigation, the way they go about searching and dealing and identifying of content or identification of CSAM content, right? So I think there is no doubt about this. I think from a regulatory point of view, we are well settled with a very robust IT Act. There are significant due diligence obligations that platforms have to abide by. And there are takedown timelines which are very, very quick as well. So I think on the regulatory side of things, we are well clear. And I think these meetings, these engagement with government are important for social media platforms to realize and remind them that you have to ensure that you're continuously monitoring your platforms and continuously updating your policies and continuously updating your processes with improved technology to be able to deal with CSAM and these kind of problematic content. I think it's important for us to look at solutions, to look at ideas. And I think over
Kazim,
here,
thank
what
you
I would
so
like to
much for bringing
reiterate.
that up.
Yeah.
Kazim, thank you so much for bringing that up because it is, of course, a very valid point and it will also form the base of what I want to ask Dr. Utpal. Given the fact that, the priority, like Kazim was mentioning, there should be developing platforms and technology and takedown systems and improving, the processes that go about doing this on a priority basis. Do you perhaps think, Dr. Utpal, that the government is barking up the wrong tree by asking for apologies at this point in time when what you could instead be doing is sharpening the focus and the priority on ensuring that your infrastructure and that your systems and your and your regulatory process is put in practice in terms of quickly countering such instances of CSAM and going about taking it down. But what we're seeing instead is a whole other discourse around apologies and about videos being taken down, involving the Prime Minister. Is there a reorientation that ought to be the need of the hour in terms of how the government is handling this situation with Meta?
Yeah, I think first of all, how this social media platform works. I mean, normally we'll see there are first level, second level, and third level of connections. Okay, and there is also a process that you can put some advertisement to boost those posts. So now there is a AI element here which is working 24/7 to see if there are contents which are not to be there in the platform. So this is the process, just for your viewers. But what happens now is there's a humongous amount of content which is coming up, and I think this platforms doesn't have a very robust algorithm as well as review mechanism to see those kind of contents, okay, which should not be there in the platform. And also, I don't believe that there could be a technical glitch that a content, okay, which is also a very popular content, like Honorable Prime Minister's video. Uh, it cannot be a technical glitch, right? I mean, because this is not a content like with a couple of thousands views or a couple of thousands likes or something like that. So there are millions and millions. So automatically, these kind of contents should be there in their dashboard, and they should be monitoring different things there. If there are any kind of illegal activities, or if there are any activities which may harm the content in one way or the other. So I think from a algorithm perspective and also from a technology standpoint, Meta should definitely upgrade themselves, their AI and all other things. And from our side, from a government standpoint, we should have a very strong regulatory mechanism through which we can allow, but we can decide like these are the content that are allowed in our country, even to the different age groups. Okay, so those kind of controls can be built. I mean, technology is available. They are not doing it. That's a different thing. But technology is available to make those kind of controls that these are the contents which should be circulated in our country in this age group and all other things, right?
Right, Mr. Chakrabarti. Qasim, let me come to you once again while we talk about, what needs to be done and, what are the kind of policy changes that are needed. There's also been, a section which has been stating that we need a new AI law because we need to keep up with the bad actors because technology is evolving fast. So in light of that, when we talk about the safe harbor provision that's given under the current IT Act, can the current set of cases that have been spoken about, for Meta, particularly with respect to CSAM, can they weaken Meta's claim to safe harbor protection? And could that be revoked? Under what circumstances could the government looking at revoking the safe harbor protection that it has granted intermediaries?
Safe harbor is not to protect platforms. Safe harbor is to protect people who use the internet. I think there's a misconception going around that safe harbor protects platforms. It doesn't. It allows users to post what they want to post without any fear of takedown or censorship. And I think we must continue with safe harbor. Even if you look at the European Digital Services Act, while they have brought in a lot of processes and audits in place, they have retained safe harbor because that's a cornerstone of the internet and how internet functions. Having said that, the government under Section 79 can sort of put liability on platforms if platforms are not taking down content, if they have actual knowledge through a court or a government order. And then the government is free to go after the platforms and penalize them or, sort of go up through a civil or a criminal liability process. So that ability is already there in the IT Act. And the government already has Section 79. Then you have 69A as well, and when it comes to blocking as well. So I think the tools are all there. I don't think that there is a lack of tools. I think what is missing is a trust over here where platforms demonstrate that they're doing enough and they're putting the right processes in place to deal with the content. Along with this, I also don't think we need an AI Act to deal with it. We've already had 2 recent amendments to the IT Act when it comes to deep fakes, etc. And I think that's good at this stage. What you rather need is better enforcement of the existing laws. And this is something, which even the government has been, if you look at broadly in India, we've been trying to get rid of too many laws and have better enforcement. I think that should be the way forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that point up, Kazim. So, Jibu, let me go over to you next. Fewer laws, better enforcement. Do you think that will be the priority going forward? And how do you see this incident in this episode between Meta and the government panning out in the immediate future? Jibu.
The real question is not about AI regulation or anything, right? We have adequate laws, like Kasim put it out. The question is whether these companies building these systems are willing to take larger responsibility when there are algorithms choose to amplify this kind of harms, right? If they can rank it, if they can promote it, if they can boost it and optimize it for views and clicks and advertisement, then of course they should take the responsibility and accountability to curbing this kind of CSAM content as well. So it's not about having more laws is not going to prevent. What we need is to act stronger because from somebody who is a student of geopolitics, when China blocked Facebook from the country, Mark Zuckerberg even studied Chinese and gave a speech in Chinese, trying to get it back. So as a largest market in the world, we hold serious leverage. It's time that the companies take a responsibility, whether it's Meta or any other big tech, for their act, especially with CSAM, right? It's shocking that we reached a position where we are discussing the technicality behind and policy behind this kind of situation as well. So it's about taking a stronger action, sending out a long message. You follow the rule of this land, you respect the rule of this land, or you are out. I think that's the kind of message we should be giving.
Absolutely, Jibu. And at that point Absolutely, and this is something that the government of India has also stated, that companies that are operating in India, that are based elsewhere, they need to follow the law of the land. However, that said, of course, there needs to be a distinction that needs to be made between free speech and, of course, hosting content. We have time for just one final question, and Kazim, I'll come to you again. You mentioned about safe harbor, provisions, and in that light, if I were to ask you, is there a legal distinction that our law provides between hosting harmful content and algorithmically amplifying it? Because what's happening right now is that some quarters of the government have been claiming that content which is aligned to a particular ideology, that is getting amplified, and their posts are not getting as many views as they would earlier. And this is something that we've seen come up over and over again.
No, absolutely. I think if you look at Section 2W of the IT Act, intermediaries, and these are all platforms which are intermediaries. IT rules themselves now in the 2021 amendment say that platforms should proactively monitor and take down content as well. So platforms have to deploy algorithms to sort of deal with some of the content and proactively take down content as well, because that's part of the process. But they still retain safe harbor. So I think going forward, what platforms have to do is demonstrate that, the algorithms are not biased. They're dealing with the right content in terms of takedown processes, and takedown processes are meeting the standards of the law, which have been prescribed by the government.
All right. I'm being told, gentlemen, that we're completely out of time on this debate. But thank you very much, Mr. Elias, Dr. Utpal Chakrabarty, and, of course, Kazim, for joining us and giving your perspectives on this developing story. Tomorrow is going to be day 2 of the Meta Global team and their presence here in India. We will be closely watching and seeing all the developments as they unfold, and, of course, these larger conversations that need to be had as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen, once again for joining us here on India Tonight. All right, let's move on and take a look at the earnings corner. Because PB Fintech, that is the parent company of Policy Bazaar, is out with their numbers for Q1 FY27. In fact, the company's net profit is nearly doubled to 162.9 crores, while operating revenue of the company has risen 40% to 1,883.3 crores on a year-on-year basis. In fact, EBITDA and margins of the company, they've also improved on an annual basis. They've also reflected better operating performance as well. So that's all about PB Fintech's Q1 earnings. And there you can see on your television screens, the margins have gone up. The EBITDA number has also gone up. But Jude, there's a lot happening as far as the US markets are concerned, because the markets have extended their rally, and S&P 500 and Dow Jones have hit fresh record highs.
Absolutely. It's day 2 of that party on Wall Street, Sumita. In fact, let me bring you up to speed with the numbers. The US markets, like you said, have extended their rally, with the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones hitting fresh record highs, and strong corporate earnings and optimism over easing tensions between the US and Iran. In fact, the Dow surged more than 500 points, while the S&P and the Nasdaq were largely in the green. However, SpaceX shares did, of course, fall in trade today. In fact, over 5% over fears of increased AI spend weighing down on investor sentiment. But moving on, Taiwan's representative in India, that's Moomin Chen, has said that the country is looking to invest in North Indian states and West Bengal. He said that presently 2 semiconductor cooperation projects are in place in Gujarat and Noida. Times Network's Srinjoy caught up with Moomin Chen. Let's listen into a slice of their exclusive conversation.
We now have 2 projects about semiconductor cooperation. One is PSMC, Tata joined Logic in Dorela, Gujarat. It is to build a fab in place. And the second is a Foxhouse HCO joint venture in Greater Noida to build up a packaging and testing plant, which started early this year. These are the 2 right now, 2 most promising projects on semiconductor cooperation between Taiwan and India, and both are going well.
And now that these 2 projects are going so well, do you see more investment by Taiwan, not just in semiconductors, but other areas in India in the coming months and years?
Yes, of course. Last year in 2025, the bilateral trade already reached 12.5 billion US dollars. And the Taiwanese investment in India in the past 20 years already reached 6 billion US dollars. Number is growing steadily. Right now, we have about 350 companies investing and operating in India. About 60-70% are in South India, mainly in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh. But we hope that more investment will come to northern India, come to UP and other states in the north.
What about West Bengal? Do you see any investment from Taiwan coming to northern India and also eastern India, like West Bengal?
Yes, of course, West Bengal and also northeast India. Before, because Taiwanese companies did not know much about this part, and West Bengal and northeast India has a huge potential, huge population, and the economy is also going well. And I believe that in future we will have some more investment coming to this area.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Tonight. From Sumita and myself, it's goodbye. Thanks for watching. But do stay tuned, because I'll be standing by to bring you business at 9 on the other side. But for the moment, it's goodbye from us.